afternoon, everybody. Welcome. I'm Councillor Lynn Stagg, Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts. We will assemble at Queen Victoria's statue in front of the civic offices. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust Fire Marshal regulations, anyone who signed in at the Guildhall reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of today's meeting. Please can everyone use the microphones and remember to switch them off when they've finished, otherwise the cameras will remain on you. And if I'm shouting, please tell me, because my ears have gone funny today. I can't hear very well, and so I don't know if I'm shouting. So just, tell me to shush if I'm being too loud, okay? Right, introductions. Start with you, Simon.
Councillor Simon Bowshire, deputising for Councillor Scott Pater-Harris.
Thank you. Councillor Heaney.
Sorry. Councillor Graham Heaney, Labour Group spokesperson on traffic and transportation.
Yes.
Natalia Łuszczyk, Active Travel Officer.
Michelle Love, Safer Travel Manager.
Chai Sharp, Active Travel Officer.
Liam Norman, Project Manager.
Bethan Mose, Transport Delivery Manager.
Joanne Eldridge, Monitoring and Evaluation Officer.
Tristan Samuels, Director of Regeneration.
Tim.
Tim Reynolds, Finance.
Simon Bell, Principal Public Transport Officer.
Paul Walker, National Bus Strategy Delivery Manager.
Felicity Tippery, Assistant Director for Transport.
Hayley Chivers, Transport Planning Manager.
Kirsty Routledge, Principal Transport Planner.
Richard Stocks, Deputy Contract Manager, PFI, on technical side.
We have two deputations, or two deputies. Dave?
Councillor Dave Ashmore, one of the Fratton councillors. I'm here to speak on Warmer and Rennie Road.
Ian Saunders, representing Portsmouth Cycle Forum.
Thank you. I'm going to swap around the agenda slightly so that you don't have to stay any longer than necessary, Ian. So I'm swapping number 5 for number 4. All right, so we'll do 5 after 3 and then 4 afterwards, okay? Thanks. Good. Members, have you got any declarations of interest? No? Thank you. Any apologies? Alison?
Councillor Scott Pater-Harris.
Yes, and Councillor Bosch is standing in for him. Okay, thank you. Right, so item number 3 on the agenda, which is Local Transport Plan 4, and I believe it's Joe who's presenting this. Thank you.
Good afternoon. The purpose of this report is to seek approval for the Local Transport Plan 4 Implementation Plan for the 2023-24 year, following the approval of £635,000 for the LTP4 funding allocation in the Council's capital programme at full council on the 28th of February. Appendix A of the report lists the proposed schemes to be funded from that capital allocation. The implementation plan covers all transport and highway schemes and initiatives, with all playing a part to deliver against the LTP4 and working towards its vision and objectives to deliver cleaner air, prioritise walking and cycling, to transform public transport and support business and protect our assets. And this includes capital and revenue schemes, initiatives and strategy development. So the recommendations of the report are that the Cabinet Member approves and adopts the attached Local Transport Plan 4 LTP4 funded schemes for 2023-24 as part of Portsmouth's LTP4 implementation plan for 22-23 to 24-25. And the authority is delegated to the Assistant Director of Transport in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation and the Section 151 Officer to update the Local Transport Plan 4 implementation plan with the proposed Local Transport Plan funded scheme list. The authority is delegated to the Assistant Director of Transport in consultation with the Cabinet Member for T&T and the Section 151 Officer to agree any minor amendments to the implementation plan that may be required to take account of future funding changes and relevant national policy guidance, including reprofiling of indicative scheme delivery timescales. and notes that the funded Transport Infrastructure Programme, Transport Hub and other revenue and externally funded highways and transport work programmes contribute to the delivery of the LTP4 and the Implementation Plan 2022-23 to 2024-25 and will be updated to include these. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo. Ian, would you like to make your deputation now?
Good afternoon, everyone. Portsmouth Cycle Forum has been an active voice in the support for the Local Transport Plan 4 throughout its development and welcomes its vision and strategic objectives, many of which reflect our own A City to Share strategy launched in 2014. We therefore welcome this proposed funding as outlined in today's report to add to the other successful transport bids that have been made over the last couple of years. Portsmouth City Council has declared a climate emergency and has a net zero carbon deadline of 2030. It has been mandated by the government to install a clean air zone due to the levels of pollution that is considerably contributed to by road traffic. Meanwhile, Active Travel England is now up and running following the announcement of its creation in 2020. Its purpose is delivering the government's objective of ensuring 50% of trips in England's towns and cities are walked, wheeled or cycled, also by 2030. To do this, they have stated that they will focus our resources on councils that have the three core ingredients to succeed: strong leadership, ambition and a track record of delivery. They have recently announced their first set of active travel capability ratings in the range of 0 at the bottom and 5 at the top. Portsmouth was rated at level 1, which is defined as some local leadership with basic plans and isolated interventions that do not yet obviously form a plan for a network. ATE is clear that this is just a starting point, but it's very likely that future funding from central government will be weighted towards those authorities that show a real desire to make improvements and an ability to deliver them successfully. For this reason, PCC needs to up its game. It needs the resources to plan, develop and most importantly deliver schemes to create that network. It also needs to ensure that it can demonstrate the success of the schemes. We note that the annual monitoring report details the deliverables from all Year 1 transport schemes is due to be presented at the Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation meeting in June 2023. We will study that report with interest and hope that the delivered schemes will be presented in a similar way to the proposed schemes in this report to identify which elements of the LTP they fulfil. There is no doubt that many schemes that have been developed since 2020 are only just coming to the delivery stage now, and Year 2's report looks to be very promising. However, that will only feed into the 2025 ATE capability ratings, and therefore any improvement of level at that point will only be acknowledged in the 2026 funding bids. Longer term, the City Centre North project promises to be a development for minimal car use. We have just seen the release of the new design of the coastal defence works that are creating a more attractive environment for active travel. However, there will be a link north of the castle and the pyramid site that the council will need to fill as it is out of scope for the coastal work themselves. With limited funding in the short term, we would suggest that there is a focus on smaller schemes that make a difference, either on connectivity to unlock a blockage, create safer spaces for people wishing to walk or cycle more, create infrastructure that is fully accessible to those that have mobility issues, and to build on the work currently being undertaken through the Transforming Cities Fund to expand the network away from the city centre and to make sustainable travel easier for all. We also note that as part of any data required to highlight problems to be corrected, that there appears to have been no casualty statistics report since the one presented in 2019, presented with the 2019 figures and presented to this meeting in February 2021. We hope that the 2020 and 2021 data reports will be forthcoming as soon as possible, given the recent increase of fatal collisions on the city's roads. The local cycling and walking infrastructure plan was developed before and during the pandemic. It was finally approved in early 2022 and highlights the walking and cycling networks to be developed through until 2031. However, having reread it in preparation for this deputation, I cannot find any defined metrics that denote success. Despite there being 8 cycle counters positioned on shared paths around the city, there appears to be no baseline data of cycling trips outside of the Cycle to Work census data of 2011 or the page 16 information of percentage of how often people walk or cycle. Without on-the-ground baseline data of people moving before and after a scheme, it will be very difficult to judge its effectiveness and utilise those results to enable further funding bids and show how changes that are being made are making a difference. We have still not seen anything about the underlying cycle strategy that is supposed to be developed during the first 3 years of the LTP life. Surely any strategy needs to be in place earlier to inform future plans and schemes to ensure that there is a consistent approach to the development of schemes and the wider network. Having a specific strategy allows the public to understand the wider significance of the work and how it fits in place with the wider scope of the LTP. We look forward to this work starting soon and of course happy to contribute and feedback on such a document. We are keen to see the completion of the Eastern Road shared path route past the caravan park to continue on from the initial phase that was completed a year ago. Further development along, as well as to and from this key arterial route is also necessary. The bike hanger scheme is obviously successful project given the number of locations and waiting lists for places that already exist. It will be interesting to see how the Pompey Active Neighbourhood project in Central Southsea develops towards its implementation. Overall, we support this report and the allocation of funding. We agree with the aims and vision of the local transport plan and want it to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Councillor Bosher, have you got any questions? Sorry?
No specific questions. It's largely a strategy document.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Heaney.
Yeah, I do have a couple of questions. At the back of the report, it talks about the, in paragraph 9.1, about the allocation of the capital schemes. And it talks about £250,000 for LTP4 and £360,000 for transport infrastructure investment. I noted from the budget meeting that the final budget amendment that was put forward, I think put forward on the Monday, there were two items that were added in at the last minute, it appears, in relation to that, and it talks about reducing LTP4 by 20,000 and reducing cycle improvements in the city by £25,000. And I wondered if you had been consulted about that proposal.
I'm afraid I didn't hear any of that, so I'll have to refer to
Sorry,
Joe.
I asked whether you had... Can I?
Joe?
Well, the question was directed at you, actually, Lynn.
Pardon?
The question was directed at you.
I couldn't hear the question, sorry.
Well, I'm speaking as loudly as I can into the microphone, so I don't quite know how we can proceed if you can't hear my question.
I am at a great disadvantage, and I'm the first to admit it, but there's nothing much I can do about it right now, so can you repeat it?
I will do. The budget amendment that was produced at the last minute council meeting. Yes. It had two items. It had reducing LTP4 by 20,000 and reducing cycle improvements in the city by 25,000. This, sorry? A reduction in spending. I wanted to ask whether you had been consulted about those proposals that went into the budget amendment.
Felicity, do we have an answer to that?
Those amendments have been factored into these amounts that have been included in the report.
That wasn't the question I asked. I said, were you, as the Cabinet member, consulted about the proposal to reduce the money? Yes or no?
I'm sorry, I really am struggling to hear. and I'm not, it's not my fault. I can't do anything about it, so.
Can I try again? A simple question.
Yes.
Were you consulted about a decision to reduce the amount of money in the LTP4 and cycle improvements in the city as the Cabinet member?
That was not, I wasn't consulted, but it was discussed with the Section 151 officer. The amount of money I think that was put in capital bids was I believe, adapted because of shortage of funds just across the board. Because remember that the LTP money is not ring-fenced.
Well...
well, it never is any year.
This was a decision by the administration to accommodate budget changes that they made. And I
Well-
just wanted to know if you had been involved in the decision.
Well, if there is, there's a limit of money. Every department had to take cuts, and therefore there were cuts made within the LTP.
So you were
funding.
okay. So yes, you were.
Yes.
Right. Okay, that's all right. I just wanted to know the answer.
Okay, fine.
The
Yes,
second
yeah.
part is in relation to the two budget figures of 250,000 and 360,000. If you look at the 360,000, there's a list of things there which include non-PFI asset management, transport hub, cycle improvements, Eastern Road, improved access, neighbourhood fund, village hardening. Now, that's £360,000. Presumably, that therefore accounts for the fact that there is £25,000 less in that because the cycle improvements in the city, which is the third item on that list, is £25,000. So if that hadn't been taken out, the budget would have been 75,000. Is that correct?
Can't hear.
Yes, I believe. Sorry.
Tim, do you have an answer to this?
Yes. So actually the split of the individual items there you can see in the capital programme. So within the traffic and transportation, you can see line by line the split of them within that, and they have been factored down for that reduction. So the current capital programme, which has been published, has got by those lines there the values, and they are factored down by that amount that was taken out.
Okay, right. And presumably the LTP4, that's presumably also £20,000 less, so it would be 270 rather than 250.
Yes.
Yes, right. Okay, right. That's what I wanted to know, really, about what had happened to the budget.
Thank you. Councillor Bowsher, have you got any comments? And speak up for me, please.
Thanks, Councillor Stagg. I mean, most of what I'm looking at focuses on Appendix A, and I guess I'm looking at it where it says all wards for a lot of these things, and I hope that all wards does include those wards off Portsea Island and is not Southsea centric in a lot of instances, because we all too often see the money being spent in the south of the city on these schemes and not coming up into the north of the city. The one thing that perhaps I'm going to be a little bit specific on is the travel line, public transport, the information. And it's a question that I've raised several times to T&T offices, and I'm yet to really have a response. And I'm going to be specific. It's about the number 23 bus service. Because we're trying to get buses, and I've listened to Ian's deputation with interest and about having joined up access. But it also means joined up access for residents that can't cycle or walk and perhaps use the bus. And it is largely to do with the fact that anybody that's using the number 23 bus, particularly from the Havant direction, and they want to go to QA, can't. And that's part of the problem. You're asking people to get off in Cossam and then either get another bus to go the extra half a mile into QA or walk. Now, by the very nature of the fact they're probably going to QA would suggest that the ability to walk up the hill is not the greatest. And I have asked the questions around what are the possibilities of the number 23 actually doing a loop of QA, what the impact was going to be to see whether it was a viable thing. So I'd like to know, given this environment, and there's plenty of officers here, whether that has been looked at and whether that is actually feasible. I'm not looking for an answer now, because certainly it is something that the residents of Drayton and Farlington are looking at very clearly. And it also would apply to other areas of the city as well, because the number 23 just literally goes around Spur Roundabout and disappears off in either direction. So when we're looking at things like the active travel, and we're looking at apps and a lot of other things, can we actually look at bus services as well, and whether they're going to the place that people actually want them to go, and the specific one, the number 23 in my instance?
Either Paul or Simon, can you come back on that? As far as I'm aware, we have got one of the lowest take-ups of bus passengers in the whole southern England. And unless the companies, whether you agree or disagree with private companies, the companies are not charities, so they have to make a profit. And if there aren't enough passengers paying, then you don't get the services that we would like. Not enough people travel, from my experience, on many of the bus routes to warrant them going further or being added on. And I think the trend nationally and internationally is to have more hubs rather than full-length bus routes, so that people go to a hub and change and go on from there on a different service. And I appreciate that with the fare system that is in existence, which is changing, that is not the best thing, because you have to buy two separate tickets. But with integrated ticketing, which should be coming in under BSIP, it would be more possible, much better able to get a ticket from wherever you're going to the very end, even if it involves different bus services. But I take your point, but it very much depends, as far as I see it, as a bus user, is that there aren't enough people taking up the buses to make it profitable. But there might be more to it than that. Simon or Paul, would you like to come back on that?
Can I just say that Service 23 is quite a long service, because it starts at Lee Park and it's the only service from Lee Park to the city. So it's a commercial service, and the decision, if the operator Stagecoach were to divert it, it would add effectively a bus into the cycle, which comes with a cost, as Councillor said, which would need to be covered by passengers, but it also makes the service less attractive for those people that are travelling across effectively QA. So if you live in Lee Park, the journey time to Portsmouth is something in the region of 50 minutes plus already, which isn't that far for a journey. So that's something, but with the SEHRT funding that we've, as one of the proposals there was for a fast service from Lee Park to Portsmouth and Southsea, by doing that, it may well be then that you could revise the 23, and I think the two possibly are linked up, would be linked up, but it would be an operator decision.
Does that, Paul, have you got anything to
I was just going to say, as part of the BSIP, we are looking at not a network review per se, but working with operators to identify where there are gaps in the market and use BSIP funding to fund that. And with tap-on, tap-off funding, as Councillor Stagg said, we're looking at better integrated back-office ticketing so that there's more interoperability between operators.
As I understand it as well from bus operators, if you add in, it's a good idea to add in that, taking the 23 up to QA, but that usually ends up in having to put an extra bus on, because you've got a timetable. You can't do the whole lot within the time allocated, so you have an extra bus, which puts up the cost again. So it's not simple. I'm not saying that I agree with all of it, but what I'm saying is it's not simple. But I think BSIP will be hopefully addressing a lot of these issues, which is why we're trying, I mean, with things like the free buses on Sundays, trying to get people who don't normally use buses to start using them, because that way then, as I keep saying to lots of people, it costs as much to run a bus with one passenger as it does with 53. So if you get more passengers on, there's more money coming into the bus companies, and they can afford then to do those extra journeys. Because when I think of when I first came to live in Portsmouth 40-odd years ago, the number of bus services was much, much greater than it is today. But the private car has taken over. So that if you don't have the demand, the bus companies don't run the buses. So there are lots of things, and we are addressing a lot of them within BSIP. It's not going to come instantly, because you've got to actually start changing people's minds as well. But I think we've got a good partnership with the bus companies now, so let's hope that we can build on that. But I agree with you that more needs to be done. But I can remember people saying when the Night and Lee closed down, terrible that it was closing down. I mean, I use it all the time. Oh, how often do you use it? Well, I use it quite often. How often? So every week? Well, no, not every week. What, once a month? Well, no, not quite often, that often. It turned out about maybe twice a year. You can't keep a shop open because somebody used it twice a year, and it's the same sort of principle, I think, with buses. Does that answer your question or not?
Well, if I'm brutally honest, Councillor Stagg, none of that answered my question whatsoever. I heard an awful lot about shops closing down and tap on, tap off, and a variety of other things, but the point I'm making is specific about this particular area, and I guess my question was, has anybody actually engaged with Stagecoach to ask whether it's a possibility? I didn't hear that there at all. And if you're, and just to pick up the point that was made about travelling all the way from Lee Park, I mean, we're talking about a bus service that runs its buses every 10 minutes, so it follows that principle of timetable as opposed to a timed timetable, if that makes sense. If you're travelling all the way from Havant, and I'll be very specific on the number 23, and it is a bus service that I do use, to go to QA, you're either having to get off at Spur Road and then walk up the hill, assuming that you're capable of walking, or you go round to what I would call the old post office and thereabouts, and then you've actually got to cross Northern Road to get a bus to go back up to QA. Now, we talked about the accessibility of these sorts of things. That, to me, is not an accessible thing to do. You've either got to walk all the way up to the Northern Road bridge and use the crossing there, or you've got to use the pedestrian access over it. And again, if you're not capable of walking very well, neither are very attractive. I get what we're talking about, CERT, and improving it, but all I'm saying is, has anybody actually spoken to Stagecoach to explore the viability of actually doing something like that? And that, to me, is a simple yes or no answer, Councillor.
Well, I don't know about officers, but I certainly did when I was portfolio holder before, and also when I was the chair of the Health Overview Scrutiny Panel. And that was the answer I got, that it would take an additional bus to go on there, and there wasn't enough passenger take-up. I am going back a few years, but I don't know if anything has been done in between. Simon?
Yeah, we
Paul?
speak with bus operators all the time. It's kind of what we're here for, really. I think there's in the wider context, we have the situation of reduced ridership following COVID. We have slow comeback from ENCTS users, which we're trying to recover with bus operators. We also have the situation where, because of the state of the industry and rising costs, they're not in this position to make decisions of risk that they would have made before. So what we're trying to do through BSIP is try to give them security, try to give them the foundation that they can take that risk and work in partnership with us. If the question is, how can we resolve that right now, the answer is no. We need to work with it in terms of building a programme with them, identifying through resident surveys, which has just closed just now, where those gaps in the market are. They have market information and market data, and for them at the moment it's not commercial. So for us, we need to do things that help make it commercial by reducing bus journey times, which means end-to-end journey times reduce, which means that buses can get around quicker, which means that you don't have to put the extra bus in that Simon was talking about, which then reduces their costs and makes the service more viable.
But it's certainly something that now we've got the partnership with the bus companies, the enhanced partnership, we can explore further. I think it's a fair point, but it's got to be both ways. There's got to be the take-up as well as the provision. Anything else? Thank you. Councillor Heaney.
Yeah, I'm happy to welcome the proposal that these things be funded. The only thing I'm disappointed in is that the administration chose to make last-minute cuts in the budget that were certainly not flagged up any time in the budget process as far as I'm aware. And it sort of highlights for me that we shouldn't be doing things like this at the last minute and having a budget situation where we can't consider things more in more detail, because I certainly wouldn't have been happy to see that, but because it was done on the Monday, there was little, if any, chance to do anything about it, and as I say, I was disappointed with that. But other than that, I'm reasonably happy to see the funding go forward.
Thank you. After all that, I approve the recommendations in there. I think there are points that we can pick up on as following up some of the points that well, both Councillor Heaney and Councillor Bosher have said, and report back on both of those as and when progress is made. And I think work has already started with BSIP anyway. So the problem with funding, Councillor Heaney, is we've all had to make cuts right across the board, and we don't just sit down and say, okay, that's fine, you take that much off us, we don't mind. We do fight for it, but when if you don't take it from this department, it comes from somewhere else on top of whatever's going out from elsewhere. So it's not easy. I'm sure you know that, having been a councillor many times before. Thank you. So I'm happy, Alison, to accept all those recommendations. We now move on to item number 5, as opposed to 4. We'll come back to 4 after that. And who's presenting that?
Myself, Councillor Stagg.
Chai. Thank you, Chai.
Thank you. This report is for active travel improvements for the TRO 206-2022. The purpose of this report is to gain approval from the Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation construction of the active travel improvements advertised under Traffic Regulation Order 206-2022 in Isambard Brunel Road following formal consultation and objection from the Cycle Forum. Recommendations. It is recommended that the Cabinet Member from Traffic and Transportation approves the implementation of TRO 206-2022 following the introduction of bus, taxi and cycle lanes and revocation of the order following formal construction. I previously took a paper to Cabinet in December 2021 which outlined proposals for this area. The fund that I'm using is active travel improvements. It's usually used for small scale adjustments to areas around the city towards cycling and walking. The Portsmouth Cycle Forum did put in an objection to 206-2022, which is outlined within the paper and has been responded to by officers.
Thank you, Chai. Ian, do you want to make your deputation now?
Thank you. Portsmouth Cycle Forum, excuse me. Portsmouth Cycle Forum made a deputation about this scheme back in December 2021 when its funding request came before this T&T meeting. We supported the initial concept of improving connectivity between the city and the sea as it was described. It showed a desire to connect the proposed changes of infrastructure to be introduced under the various Transforming City Fund projects immediate to the north, as well as improving the existing access to the northern side of the Somers Town Community Hub. Our site visit with council officers in January 2022 to discuss the development of the potential route highlighted the issue of the proposed location for this drop-down curb into Hyde Park Road, the poor sight lines for anyone travelling around the corner close to the Charter Academy wall, and the expectation that unless there was a way to prevent vehicles parking across the access, it may not make any improvements anyway. We were disappointed that it had appeared that these considerations had not been taken into account for the proposed design. Hence our questions about an alternate route for the access across and into the road included in our objection to the TRO. We are glad to see that the report today states that this alternative option for the drop curb access from Isambard Brunel Road into Hyde Park Road is to be investigated. We believe our proposed route allows for much better visibility for all road users, and the Hyde Park Road location is less likely to be parked on as it is at the end of a closed road rather than in line with other parking bays in the road. There are many examples of this kind of modal filter having been installed around the country, with many of them giving an opportunity to introduce screening to increase the return on investment. The January 2022 meeting also highlighted the need to integrate this proposed route south of Winston Churchill Avenue with, at that point, the desire but no firm route plan for the east-west active travel corridor between the Somers Town Hub and Wellington Street. We were therefore surprised when the consultation came out a year later and the design scheme had jettisoned any of the connectivity in this area when it had specifically referenced the issues faced by cyclists and pedestrians having to cross the two-stage crossing if they wish to avoid the roundabout. We acknowledge this element will now be designed into the forthcoming active travel corridor project, but wish to note, however, that there will still be a requirement for the installation of a drop curb to enable people cycling to access the new facility at the northern end of St James's Road, as well as the proposed cycle track located on the current footway from the bus lane at some point. We are especially concerned that incorrect drawings were issued for the TRO consultation. As highlighted in our objection, we spend a lot of time discussing schemes that affect cyclists in the city. We expect that the drawings being consulted on to be correct and that these should already have been adjusted to integrate comments from any road safety audit. However, when the new drawings arrived after the closing date, we had assumed the scheme had been revised following the consultation and some of our questions were being answered. It was never explicitly explained to us that the wrong drawings were attached to the original TRO. We therefore welcome point 5.1.6 assurance that a new process has been put in place to prevent old documentation from being published in future TRO publications. We are also assured by the retention of the school zigzag lines that will give better enforcement against antisocial parking along the route. However, we still have concerns about the description of the scheme and its subsequent funding source. The Finance Officer's comments that the cost of these works will be funded from the Active Travel Improvement Fund 21-22 budget within the local transport plan allocation for the approved capital programme. The cost of around £33,000 will cover design, construction works and officer time associated with the scheme. We presume that given the statement, the proposed cycle lanes and infrastructure changes do not legally require a TRO to be installed and did not form part of the TRO consultation, and that TRO 206-22 was published to gather feedback on the reintroduction of the bus lane and school zigzags, which do require a TRO, that the costs referred to in the Finance Officer's comments are those for the various road treatments to extend the bus lane under the TRO and therefore do not include those budgeted for the drop curbs either in the current design or the potential change in favour of our proposed solution. If that is the case, it would suggest that this is essentially an extension to a bus lane which is being paid for from the Active Travel Improvement Fund when Portsmouth bus services have received millions of pounds in funding in the last 2 years. That does not sit well with us given the number of truly active travel schemes that cannot be taken forward for lack of funding. We note the explanations and considerations given in today's report and hope that the future proposed schemes will better reflect the desire weighed against the available funding before they are presented to the public. Many of the questions raised in our initial response and subsequent objection to this TRO have been answered, and therefore we are happy to support the TRO and the report as presented today.
Thank you, Ian. Before I come to the councillors, would officers respond to some of the questions that Ian's raised?
Yeah, I just want to say that the amount that's stated in here covers the whole of the project, so it's not just the TRO. I think that's just a misunderstanding. So it will cover the cost of the drop curbs and the additional works.
Thank you. Is that okay, Ian? Yeah, okay, thanks. Simon, any questions? Any comments?
The only comment I would have is that I'm generally supportive of what's planned. I've listened to what Ian's had to say very carefully in that respect, but anything that improves active travel and cycling, particularly in that particular roundabout, which is not the safest, I would suggest, would be well served.
Well, as I understand it, if money, I think you're going to have a look at the design once it's in place. Am I right, Michelle? And then if there is money available, if anything else is needed, it can be addressed at a later date. Am I right, or have I got that wrong?
No, you're right, Councillor.
Right,
thank
good.
you. So within the report, we undertook a commitment to look at the proposal that Cycle Forum put forward and to carry out a feasibility study on it, that either being additional engineering drawings or talking to stakeholders within the area, such as the police station, which are obviously opposite the current location of the improvements that are due to be made. So we've made that commitment and we will do that. As Ian said within his deputation, this links to the East-West Active Travel Corridor. That work is still ongoing. There is still budget within the budget that we have allocated to active travel improvements. So we're asking for approval to carry out this stage of it, and then we'll start on the next stage. So it's incremental improvement and development, but it will be carried out, and we will investigate as fully as we can whether or not those proposals are possible. And if they're not, then we'll look at what other alternatives we can do.
Thank you, Michelle. Ian, are you happy with that? Lovely, thank you. Right. Councillor Heaney.
Yeah, no questions. I just want to say that thank you to Michelle and Shai. When I saw the original draft report, the plan on it was a little bit fuzzy, so I asked for a site visit, and they very kindly agreed to walk me around, and we were discussing some of the things. So thank you to Chai and Michelle for that, because it helped certainly to get a better sense of how it was set out. And having read the concerns that the Cycle Forum had, I certainly got a better understanding of it. And I think I do agree with the idea that the better access is right at the end of Hope Street rather than there. But obviously that's going to be looked at, so that's absolutely fine. So yeah, I'm happy.
Thank you. Yeah, we want to get it right. We want to improve things right across the board, Ian. You know, for cyclists, for pedestrians, and for motorists as well, so I don't leave them out. But so, yes, we are listening to people, and very often there are problems that occur which you don't foresee, and you know, they have to be addressed at a later date. But you've got the assurance that that's going to be happening. Okay, thank you. In that case, I'm happy to okay all the recommendations. Is that right with you, Alison? Do you get that? Thank you. Right, now we go on to what I think is number 4, isn't it? Item number 4. I'm right in saying this. And this is Richard, isn't it? Is it Tertiary Roads?
Yes, it is.
Yes?
Yep.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay. The purpose of this report...
Thank you, Jai.
Purpose of this report is to inform the members of the frequency of inspections and process around decision making with regards to resurfacing the roads, particularly the tertiary road network. And the recommendations within the report for the Cabinet member is that they approve the plans and timings inspections of the tertiary road network are shared with the ward councillors, that they approve the report on the conditions of the road that follows these inspections is shared with all ward councillors. Notes the decisions by Cabinet member is brought to the public transport and traffic and transport decision meeting for information.
Thank you. Councillor Heaney.
Yeah, no questions really. Just to say I'm very pleased that we're going to get the information as councillors. Thank you for agreeing that at the council meeting, because it is useful to know when our roads are being inspected and what the condition is, because we do get inquiries from residents, and it's much easier if we know the process and when it's happened, and we can refer back to things we've had as information. So I'm absolutely fine with it.
Thank you. Councillor Bosher.
Thank you much, Councillor Stagg. Perhaps I'm having a simple Simon moment. When you say with all ward councillors, I take it you're not talking about the ward-specific 3. You're talking about all 42 councillors in this particular environment, are you?
Well, I think both. I mean, I think when things come up that are specific to particular wards, you contact the specific ward councillors. But I think the general information going out to all ward councillors, people need to know it.
Yeah, that's the point that I was sort of getting at, because we get the COLAS maintenance programme that comes through, and you can scan through all the various wards so you can see what's happening across the city, if you like, and that's what I was looking at out of interest, to see whether it is, you know, we can see what, from me sitting in Drayton and Farlington, clearly seeing what's happening in Drayton and Farlington is great, but it's also nice to know what is planned and what is happening in Eastleigh and Craneswater and Central Southsea, if that makes sense. So I wouldn't like to think it's all done in little islands. It's all done as all 42 of us, so that we can all see the data as it comes through. But I'm only being picky with with what it means by the definition of all ward councillors.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Richard. And I'm in a lucky position, because Eleni, I meet with Eleni once a month, and she goes through everything bit by bit, and I have asked her to let board councillors know the details, and I know she does do it. So, but I think that the overall things, for example, like the scoring method that is used, that is very useful, I think, for ward councillors to know that if the road is not being resurfaced or whatever, to know why, and the score that it's got on the basis of that. So I think that sort of information is very useful. Yes, Simon.
Sorry, there's just one thing that's I've just picked up on, and that's on the map on, I'm just trying to see what page it's on. It's all over printed. Portsmouth PMS Network Tertiary Routes map. And again, I'm looking at Drayton and Farlington, because right up the top in the centre, you've clearly got what looks a little bit of the top and round by the George pub. We actually have, and I'm banging the same old drum, we actually have an area of PO7 within the Portsmouth network, and a significant number of roads the other side of the hill. I don't know whether it's a function of this map or not, but none of those roads are actually shown as being part of the tertiary routes.
Do you know if they are, Richard? Being PO7, I don't know.
I'll have to come back with you on the details of that. As you say, the map is actually quite small. It's really just for information there. I'm sure all the appropriate roads are all covered within the appropriate PFI contract and needs.
But that's something I think that could be checked, because I don't know if it's because it's PO7, does it come under the PFI? I don't know. Does anybody know? Tristan.
Just to say, we won't know that answer now, but we'll go away and check. There are a number of roads within the city, within the PO's areas that aren't in the contract, and for reasons at the time that the contract was settled. So let us take it away and come back.
So that would be useful to let ward councillors know. Yeah, good. Okay. So that's noted, Simon. Lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Richard. And I approve all the recommendations. So thank you. We're now on to item number 6, which is, when I can find it, Warmer Road, Rennie Road and Proctor Lane, one-way system. And I think it's Liam who's going to present this. And Dave, you're going to do a deputation afterwards, okay? Thank you, Liam.
Thank you, Councillor Stagg. So the purpose of this report is to gain approval from the Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation on whether to progress. Sorry. The purpose of this report is to gain approval from the Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation on whether to progress with the proposed scheme in light of the objections received. There were 3 objections received in total, one of which was withdrawn and another remained, although it was based on the misunderstanding that the scheme would not include traffic calming measures. There was another objection that was received after the deadline on the 10th of February 2023, and for the purpose of making sure that all residents feel heard in the process, we've still included that within the report. Extensive engagement was carried out in October 22 on the scheme proposals with local residents, and there was a majority support for the option being put forward. Thank you.
That's it, is it? Okay, thank you. Dave? Councillor Ashmore.
It's okay. Yeah, thanks for that. Obviously, I'm speaking up here in support of it, of the scheme. I've been involved in it from suggestion to this meeting. Just a brief bit about how it came about is for the last couple of years now, we've, in my council role, we've been door knocking, speaking to people in those roads. And one of the things they constantly bring up is concerns about, the fact that the road is quite narrow when it's got the cars parked either side, and it's a two-way system. As they're quite long and quite narrow for cars, they can obviously, if you're meeting another car halfway through, one of them's going to have to reverse back, and that could be quite a while, and that could obviously that's it does lead to tailbacks. And people have said to me, they've one of the constant things people say has happened there is their cars being damaged, either scratched or wing mirrors being knocked or dents, and and the occasional speeding too. It's one of those, for those not aware of the location of it, it's one of the ones right just before you get to Fratton Bridge. So at night, you do get speeding as well. So that was another concern. So one of the things we discussed with people there is, would you think a one-way system along Warmer Road there and along the road parallel to that at Rennie Road would be a good thing, as long as it included, obviously, the speed calming measures. And they all said, we like that idea. So we put it to the transport team and the cabinet member here, and you went out and did that consultation. As you say, it got a majority in favour, which doesn't shock me at all. So yes, it's what people wanted. I think it will lead to safer roads. I think it will lead to less damaging on cars there. I think it'll also help when we've been talking about cycling in here. Obviously, if you're a cyclist going down there and there's a tailback of cars, or you've got a car suddenly reversing, that's obviously not going to be an issue if these roads were involved in a one-way system there. So yeah, I think the speeding concerns as the objection that come in, that's already been addressed with the speed calm in there. So yeah, everything, I think this is what people want. This is what I think will be really beneficial for the area here. So I'm here to say I hope it goes through today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bosher.
I've got no comments on this one.
No comments, no questions?
No, this is very much a ward-specific issue that Councillor Ashmore probably knows more about than I do.
Absolutely. Thank you. Councillor Heaney.
Yeah, it was just a question, just for clarification. 6.3 talks about the contraflow cycle scheme. Is this going to be markings on the roadway or signs visible on posts, or is it going to be a bit of both?
Yeah, I mean, contraflow cycling in one-way streets is recommended now, isn't it, nationwide? So, and yes, having the correct signage there. Otherwise, I think we're in a mess if we don't have the correct signage. Paul Darlow will make sure that that's done correctly. So, anything else?
I mean, just like Councillor Bosher said, I mean, this is obviously a ward issue, and if the ward council is happy that that's their issue, that's fine.
Then I'm fully in agreement, improving the recommendation. It's a long road, and I've used that many times. When I was teaching, I had pupils there, and you suddenly come up because it bends as well, which doesn't help. So yeah, and it's been a problem for years. So thank you very much. And we're now on to item number 7, which is St Jude School Streets Permanent Infrastructure. Michelle, the Queen of School Streets, yes?
Among other things, yes. Thank you, Councillor Stagg. We're bringing the report today, St Jude School Streets, with the recommendations that we would like you to approve the creation of a school street via the installation of resident-only access signs with times of operation displayed on St Nicholas Street, Pembroke Close and Penny Street at the point of entry from Pembroke Road, and that you approve that this installation will be for a minimum of 18 months under an experimental traffic regulation order. If the outcome of the initial 6-month consultation linked to that experimental traffic regulation order is that respondents are in favour of a permanent school street, then further additions to the network could be investigated. To give you background, St Jude's Primary School is located in St Thomas Ward. It is in an area of cul-de-sacs. It's a popular school, and because it is a faith school, Church of England Primary School, the catchment area can be wider for pupils, which has resulted in a large number of pupils or parents driving their children to school. In September 2021, we undertook a 7-week school streets trial that was a manned closure, and we took data from that both before and after. The outcome of the data after the trial was that people would like to see a permanent school street go in there. We then carried out focus groups with the school residents and parents, where they came up with ideas that they felt would work or potentially not work. We've taken all that information on board, and that's what's been fed into this report, so we would like the approval to start that process. There will be continuing engagement with both the parents, residents and school within the area to determine whether or not they feel that this initiative has been successful. So we will keep those close relationships that we've got with the school, and there will be obviously opportunity for everyone to give their feedback through that 6-month period where the school street is in operation as an experiment to determine whether or not it's the most appropriate method of closing the road at that time. Happy to take any further questions.
Thank you, Michelle. Councillor Bosher.
Not really any specific questions. I'd be interested to know, when we did the original scheme, the original trial, and you said it was that manned by PCC staff, or was it down to the school to actually do that?
So it started off being manned by volunteers from the school and the local community. The council did give assistance because obviously that is within the model that is used for a trial. That is always the most challenging aspect of it. So a lot of people will agree and be supportive of it, but you need those people to be able to turn up once or twice a week to man those closures. So, but yeah, primarily it was the school and the residents, but we did lend a hand where it was needed.
When you spoke to the residents, did you speak to a significant number of residents that were going to be outside of the school area?
So with St Jude's, so it is within a cul-de-sac area. It's Peacock Lane, St Nicholas Street, Poynings Place. So we primarily concentrated on that area, partly because the number of complaints and residents that were experiencing stress from people parking over their driveways, etc., were wholly focused on that area, but there was a wider consultation area. The consultation was also online, so obviously a lot of the parents, as we said, it's a faith school, they come from outside of the immediate area, so all opinions were taken into account. The most interest was generated from those who are immediately within the vicinity of the school area.
Yeah, that's fine, because perhaps being a bit of a cynic, and I'm trying not to be, to alleviate and make the area safe around a school, let's say, you are still going to get a hardcore of parents that are going to insist on driving little Johnny to school. So all they are going to do is find somewhere to park. So you are effectively displacing the problem. And it'll be interested to know what that sort of reaction is going forward. Because clearly this is one school, but I'm anticipating this is going to be potentially rolled out to other schools throughout the city. Each school obviously has its own unique set of circumstances, but certainly the schools that I'm quite close to, if you introduce those sorts of measures, then you are still going to get the Chelsea tractors. They're going to say, all right, well, I can't park there. I'll park 100 yards back further down the road, basically, and all you're doing is shifting that parking across people's driveways 100 yards down the road. So it's that sort of feedback I'd be equally interested in, either if you have it or if you are going to take it during the period of the ETRO.
Yeah, we have the residents' feedback from the forums of St Jude's, which we can share with you once they've gone to the school, and the parents and residents that took part within that forum. I think it's important to say that it's not, particularly with the trials, it's not just a stick of the school street. We also have the carrot of the app, the Stomper app, the incentives for the children, the prizes that they have. We do park and stride maps, so we map out where it's possible to park. If there is a particular area, so for instance, St Jude's use the pay and display bays at the end of St Nicholas Street along Pembroke Road. When we did it with St John's, they used Asda car park, so they could park there and walk across the road. So we will always explore every alternative to try and disperse that parking. In some areas, for instance, me on infants and juniors, there wasn't an option, so it was simply just to find a space. That was still, it worked very well for the trial. Again, there was issues with the number of people that volunteered, but the end of trial sort of feedback was, if you could find a way to do it without needing people to close it, we would still like it to happen. So, but yes, I mean, obviously I know we have had conversations, very initial conversations with schools within your ward, and if they wanted to take that further, we would do the same, and we would look at how we could displace the parking through park and stride and the incentive system. Because if a child, normally you'll find that within a school, around 65 to 70% of the pupils live within half a mile to a mile. So it's about giving them that incentive to walk to school. And that's through the Stomper app and the prizes that they're offered.
Yes, that's one thing I wanted to stress. It's not just about the area for the kids to walk in, but encouraging people not to bring their cars, if that's possible. I appreciate that that's not possible for everybody, because if you've got mothers or fathers that work and they drop the kids off on the way to work, it's not possible. But otherwise, you try and encourage them to. It's healthier for the kids to walk, to stomp, or to scoot to school. So it's a dual thing. It's not just about the area around from the residents' point of view, but encouraging the children to have a healthier lifestyle as well. I mean, I live next to a school, and I have parents dropping off their kids. They only live 2 streets away. you know, they could actually walk there. They don't actually work, but they drive the children to school. And that's not healthy. So if we can encourage, I know we could be accused of being a nanny state, but, you know, so what? Anything else, Councillor Bosher?
I'm interested. There'll be some conversations with schools in my ward. Perhaps offline I'd like to know more about that, particularly as I am a resident like you, Lynn, and I actually live in the road in which there is a school, an infant school, and I suspect it may well be one of the ones there's been a conversation with.
Well, I used to live up in that area, and my boys used to go to, I can't remember the name of it now, but it's the northern one. And we used to walk there from Moortown Avenue. So.
If you need any assistance,
Solent.
Councillor Ashmore is very good at Googling where Drayton is. He did it at the last Employment Committee meeting.
Right. Anything else, Councillor Bosher? Councillor Heaney.
Thank you. Well, no question specifically. I mean, I have had a couple of people contact me about this in the past and was aware of the development. So if this obviously turns from an ETR into a permanent one, then obviously that will hopefully deal with the problem.
One of the things that I remember from the first day at of the school street at St Jude and also at Brambles was the joy in the faces of the children when they came round the corner, when they were either walking or scooting, and they saw their friends, and they sort of raced up to them because they were free to do it. You know, they weren't sort of encumbered by traffic. It was just a pleasure to see. Really good. Okay, thank you. Well, yes, I'm fully in favour of all of this, so accept all the recommendations, and thank you, Michelle, for that. Number 8, I think this is Simon. Additional bus services for the summer. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Yep. The purpose of this report is to review the bus services supported by Portsmouth City Council in the summer of 2022-23 and make recommendations for any summer bus services in 2023-24. It is recommended that the Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation delegates authority to the Assistant Director of Transport to undertake the procurement process and award a contract for a park and ride service known as Southsea PR3 to operate in July and August summer holidays and on weekends in May, June and September to be funded from the parking reserve, subject to value for money after consideration with the Section 151 officer. Notes the registration of a commercial open-top seafront service 50 between the Hard Interchange and South Parade Pier between the 28th of May and the 30th of September 2023, and notes that no additional journeys on bus service 25 will be operated in the summer of 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Councillor Heaney.
Just a couple of questions. Is it the case that we always do an annual process for contracting for summer bus services? We don't do anything longer than a year. So we're contracting for this summer, but we've never done a multiple-year summer service contract. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. Last year was the first year that we'd contracted an open-top bus service. This year it's a commercial service, so it's not in our hands. This is the proposed third year for the park and ride service to Southsea during the summer. And these are experimental to see if we can build ridership up in terms of the numbers.
Right, okay. I was just wanting to check because I was talking, you talk about the funding and you were talking about taking it out of the parking reserve. I just wondered if we could take it out of our bus improvement money rather than, because it's not a, I suppose if we've done it in previous years, it counts as an existing service, so we can't really do it. But if it was a new service, we probably could. So I'm just wondering if we can be a bit creative with the funding so we don't take it out of our parking reserve.
Councillor Bosher. No? Well, yes, I'm in favour of this. I think one thing, a lesson we learned from last year was because it started a bit late, we didn't get communications out early enough. I think that's something we're going to address this year. I think we would have had a greater take-up of the services if we'd got that information out earlier. And I think the businesses along Crowns Parade there, they were keen to promote the services as well. So I think we need to take up on the that offer, because that's important. So thank you, and thank you for the work you've done on that, Simon. Brilliant. I'm disappointed that this 25 isn't going to get any more stuff, but the rest of it I'm okay with. So thank you. Number 9, that's Portsmouth Car Club. Kirsty.
Yeah, thank you. So this decision paper provides a progress update on the Car Club project and details the proposed locations for Car Club bays at launch. It is recommended that the Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation notes the progress made towards introducing a car club in Portsmouth, approves the use of designated car club parking bays in on-street and off-street locations for the duration of the car club scheme, approves the locations detailed in the report for designated car club parking bays to proceed to traffic regulation order consultation, and notes that a report will be brought back to the Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation in June 23 with the results of the TRO consultation and recommendations of the final designated bays to be implemented. The introduction of a car club in Portsmouth contributes towards the vision and strategic objectives of the Portsmouth Transport Strategy, particularly deliver cleaner air. The car club will support the choice of reduced private car ownership, particularly for households with multiple vehicles, through working alongside other complementary work programmes to promote alternative mode choice and providing access to a private vehicle for essential trips. A procurement process was launched in December 2022, and following the assessment of bids, we are in the process of finalising the scheme in partnership with the preferred bidder, Enterprise Car Club, prior to entering into a formal contract. The car club is initially focusing on 4 wards in the city, which are Central Southsea, Eastney and Craneswater, St Jude and St Thomas. These wards have been selected as following a car club survey carried out in 2021. They came out highest in the survey question about likelihood to consider joining a car club in your area of the city by residential ward. Central Southsea, St Jude and St Thomas received a targeted letter drop to promote this survey following 2019 research indicating their high potential for a car club, owing to factors such as socio-demographics, pressure on car parking, access to public transport and active travel modes. The 4th ward, Eastney and Craneswater, is a neighbouring ward to them. The car club vehicles will also be introduced at Lakeside in the north of the city in the first phase of this scheme. It's currently proposed that the scheme will launch with 2 car club vehicles in each of those wards, along with 2 cars to be located at Lakeside, with a total of 10 vehicles to be introduced to the city in the first phase. The final locations are subject to traffic regulation order consultation. 12 residential locations are proposed within the TNT paper across the 4 wards, with 3 in each, to provide wider options for final implementation. And following the outcome of the TRO, however, it is only proposed to take 8 residential locations forwards at scheme launch, along with the 2 bays at Lakeside. And then following the TRO consultation, a report will be brought back to TNT in June to decide on the final bay locations to be taken forward in the initial stage of the scheme. And it is estimated that the scheme will launch in July 2023.
Thank you, Kirsty. Can I just put in here, I think this is about 3 years later coming than was originally anticipated, wasn't it? Because COVID unfortunately interfered with it all. So this should have been in quite a while ago. But thank you for the work you've done on that. Councillor Heaney.
Oh, thank you, yes. I certainly welcome the idea of the car club. I just want to clarify. I think it was said there were 10 cars to be used in the wards, 2 to go to Lakeside.
I thought it was 8, wasn't it, and 2 at Lakeside?
Well, I've just heard 10, so I don't know.
10 altogether. Am I right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
2 in each of the 4 wards and
Right.
2 at Lakeside.
And 2 at Lakeside, right. Okay, so that then was my question about the parking, because we've got 3 locations in each ward as suggested possible parking spaces. Is this because we think that some of them might not be viable, or are we going to make all of those roads parking spaces for the vehicles? Because we'll have 8 vehicles and 12 parking spaces. So effectively,
I think we believe that the board councillors would know, in consultation, I suppose, with the residents, which ones would be the preferred location. So that they're options.
So they're options, not
yes,
the final.
Yeah,
so
yes.
Only 2 out of each of those will actually become a right.
Initially,
okay.
this is the start.
Yeah, no, that's what it wasn't clear, because the number of cars involved in the trial aren't actually mentioned in the section 5. It just says 2 at Lakeside, doesn't say that 2. But anyway, I'm happy now I'm clarified that.
Yeah, just to clarify that point, if I can, there are 12 locations suggested in the paper, but it's only proposed that 8 will be taken forward in residential locations, with the additional 2 at Lakeside. So in the initial stage of the scheme, we're proposing 10 vehicles to be taken forward and 10 bays.
Thank you, Kirsty. Councillor Bosher.
No questions, Lynn. Mine are more probably comments at the end of it. Do you want me to comment now?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I mean, I'm broadly supportive of what we're trying to do here. And this is obviously going to be monitored throughout its progress, or I certainly hope it will, because a lot of the report makes comments about suggesting it's going to reduce demand here, take pressure away from residents' parking zones. So it makes a lot of assumptions, shall we say, about what the impact is going to be. It would be good to have some metrics against this going forward so that we can actually see whether what's put forward in this report as being assumptions, and I appreciate that that's exactly what they can only be at this moment in time, are actually going to be delivered. Because essentially, if this rolls out further, we're going to be taking dedicated parking spaces. So we're going to be taking away parking in areas where there's already high parking demand, because there's got residents' parking zones there, and putting in effectively a dedicated bay that I assume if anybody else parks in it, they're going to get a parking ticket. Is that the principle behind what we're looking at?
Yeah, the bay will be specifically for the car club vehicle, yeah.
Right. So as this rolls out further, it's going to be interesting to see whether it is reducing the use of the private vehicle, because otherwise all it's going to really achieve is potentially aggravation in some of those streets where we're taking away more and more parking for something that probably might not get used. So we've got to be brave to say that if it isn't working, we take it away. That we need to have those measurements in place throughout the period to make sure that we can make a considered decision, or whoever does make that decision makes a considered decision at the end of it. But broadly, I'm supportive with let's try something.
Yes, I think the hope is, Simon, that there'll be more than 2 cars will be removed. You know, people will get rid of the second car, because I know a lot of people already said to me that they would get rid of this. I know some people who have got rid of their second car, and the fact that having a car club, they would be able to hire them for the little amount they use them. So the hope, I don't know if it's an assumption, I suppose possibly an assumption based on what's happened in other areas and other parts of the country, is that those 2 cars will take up more second cars across the city. But you're right, we need to get the evidence for that, for it to continue.
I haven't had the chance to read the whole report because obviously I'm deputising for Scott, but what is the cost implications behind hiring one of these cars?
Sorry, it's on now. Apologies. Yeah, so for the first year for Portsmouth residents, there is a membership charge of £20, which is normally £60. And there will also be driving credits of £20 added. And then there's the higher rate for the vehicle, which starts at £6.70 per hour.
Sorry, so that you pay £20 per annum to be a member of the club. Is that how I'm seeing it?
For the first year,
For the first year?
Yeah.
And then it's £6.70-ish an hour on top of that?
I mean, that's the starting rate. I think it depends on the vehicle that's put there. I mean, more detail around that will be brought forward, but that is the suggested starting rate, yeah.
It's okay. I'm just perhaps I'm being a cynic, and I'm not being anti it. I'm just trying to get it. But the car's going to be parked 2 in each ward. So to be attractive, they've got to be accessible to somebody, and I'm guessing there's some sort of booking system attached to this. So they're clearly not going to be attractive for people to use around the city necessarily, because they could walk to a bus stop and get from A to B, and the bus would inherently probably be cheaper or free if they're doing it on a Sunday. So there is that aspect to it. So where do we see this actually going forward, though, from its attractiveness? Who's the target audience for something like this?
Yeah, there we go. But potentially, as we've mentioned, people with maybe more than one vehicle, that could they consider, if they have two or more vehicles, potentially getting rid of one and using the car club alongside some of these other modes of travel, as you mentioned, the bus and other things. That's one of the considerations of where to position the car club, is where there is options to use a variety of transport, but it gives still that availability of a private vehicle for those journeys that are needed to be made that way. And certainly I'd take on board, obviously, the seeing how the scheme goes. There will be monitoring, and we'll be working closely to look at how it's going and what the figures are and membership levels and information like that.
I suppose people have got to weigh up how much insurance they pay a year for their car, how much car tax, etc., the depreciation of the car. So if it's going to be cheaper to use the car clubs than paying out for something that they don't necessarily use every day. It's a different... I don't think these are aimed at people who use their car every day to go to work. It's for the second car or the not used very often car. That seems to be what the car clubs nationally are used for, but who knows, Portsmouth may be different.
Is it possible that you could circulate an interim report as we go forward to keep us updated with the data as it's going forward? Because I'm sort of looking at it and saying, if you're looking at it in that sort of central South Sea area, you've obviously got barrel bikes, you've got voice scooters, you've got bus services, and now you've got something else that you're looking to add to it. And perhaps I'm looking at it and saying that there's an argument, if you're getting rid of the second car because you can't afford it, it's just sitting there all day. You've got three other alternative modes of transport there to start with, and I'm not including in there Ubers and Aquas and everybody else like that somebody might actually use. So it'd be interesting to see how this data plays out going forward and what its usage is.
I think there are a lot of people as well, of course, these days who are working a lot from home, aren't they? I mean, when I look at my road every day, there are far more cars there now than there used to be 5 years ago during the daytime. Because more people are at home. So maybe for those people twice a day coming into civic offices or wherever they're going, the car club would be better than having the second car. Because a lot of people just use the second car for those extra bits rather than their own daily commute, don't they? I mean, we'll see how it pans out. It's all going to be reviewed anyway because it's a commercial enterprise that's going to be running it, and they're not going to be running it at a loss. So, but we will certainly keep an eye on it. So I'm happy. Anything else, Simon? Okay, I'm happy with that. So thank you, Alice. Next one, I think, is London Road Taxi Rank Trial. Joe.
This report is for information only, and its purpose is to provide an update on the trial of the London Road Taxi Rank in North End following 6 months of operation under Experimental Traffic Regulation Order 87/2022. On the 18th of March, the Cabinet member for TNT approved the rank be introduced as a trial under an ETRO to allow for the rank to be monitored during its operation for 22 hours a day, 9 a.m. until 7 a.m. The ETRO came into effect on the 5th of August 2022, and following the lining works and installation of signage, the rank was in operation from Tuesday the 9th of August 2022. Various data has been collected and compared with data known ahead of installation, such as bus journey time data, casualty data, near-miss data, non-compliance and enforcement feedback, stakeholder feedback and safety assurance through independent RSAs prior to installation and during operation. And all of these findings are detailed within the report, with no significant issues that have been identified. In February, 6 months following the installation of the trial, a formal ETRO objection was received from the Portsmouth Cycle Forum with concerns over the safety of cyclists. The ETRO objection will be considered near to the end of the trial and within the 18-month ETRO period. The existing taxi rank will continue to be monitored through regular engagement with stakeholders and continued data gathering. And a report will be taken to the Cabinet member for Traffic and Transportation ahead of the end of the 18-month ETRO period with a recommendation on the next steps of the trial. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Councillor Bosher.
No questions from me, thanks, Lynn.
Any comments? No? Okay. Councillor Heaney? Councillor Heaney?
No, it's continuing its information on the trial. I'm happy to receive it and see what the final results are.
Yep, there seem to be no objections all round. So I think we need to keep an eye on it, though, because it's easy to slip, and it gets worse. So, but thank you very much. Right, I think the next one is item number 11, Portsmouth Bus Service Improvement Plan, passenger charter. That's you, Paul, I think, isn't it?
It is. Thank you very much, Chair. As you know, as part of the National Bus Strategy Award funding of £48 million to Portsmouth City Council, part of the programme is to deliver a bus service charter for users. We are currently rolling out the capital programme, which is starting in earnest. We've also delivered some early morning and late weekend services to deliver additional bus services, which are going down quite well with people, as well as free fare Sundays on Sundays in March. We're currently putting together an overall programme for the bus service improvement plan, and one of the elements of that is the bus passenger charter, which is being signed between ourselves and the two main operators, Stagecoach and First Solent. The charter covers elements of bus service provision that are responsibility for not only the City Council but also for operators, and covers areas like services and information about ensuring there's a network of regular bus services, standards for bus stops and shelters, including QR codes and real-time information, reliability, including being kept informed of delays, and taxi ride home for people that, for a bus that doesn't operate the last bus of the day, and also elements of on-bus, including increased range of tickets, which I think we've covered a little bit today, audio-visual announcements, next stop CCTV, customer service training, and also keeping people up to date with the plans that we've got for improving bus services in the area.
Thank you. Councillor Heaney.
I don't have any questions, really, just to make sure that the feedback that we get to the bus companies comes back to us as well, so we can monitor what's happening. I think that'd be useful. See whether the feedback from the bus companies will be shared with us as well, because the charter says here that complaints and comments go to the bus companies direct, so they won't be coming to us. They're not complaints to the council.
Well, there will be a board set up, and that will be made up of members and officers and the bus companies, so it's right across the board, so there'll be accountability right away across the board. I do have worries, and I've said this many times before, and I've said it to the bus companies. I do have worries about the reliability of some of the buses, because they're so short of drivers, and this isn't peculiar to Portsmouth, it's right across the country. So I'm not sure how they will work to get that improved, but you know, if a bus, I waited for 40 minutes outside QA for a number 2 bus one freezing morning in January, February, I think it was, and there were several people there, and buses just hadn't turned up. So I think they need to address that. They're aware of that, and they're doing their very best. And as I say, it's nationwide, it's not just here. So that is something I'm concerned about. But yes, but keeping everybody informed is important, and having a say in what goes on is very important.
Well, that's useful, because you said a board, and I'm quite happy to see a board monitoring it, but I think it needs to go wider. Maybe a report coming here, maybe at least once a year, about the performance would be useful. So. Councillor Bersher. Okay with it? Right. Yes, I'm happy with this, but I do think, you know, well, I'll reiterate it, keeping an eye on the reliability, because we're never going to get people to use the buses regularly if they don't, you know, turn up regularly. You know, you're standing there and you're waiting for a bus. The last few days or weeks I've used buses, because I can't drive at the moment because of my shoulder, and they've been fine, but there have been those odd days. And you know, if I was somebody who didn't use a bus very often, I'd say, well, I'm not going to bother with this again, I'll go back to the car. So it's something we need to sort of keep an eye on. Okay, so just take that back to them, Paul.
I was just going to say that there's an annual reporting mechanism through the passenger charter, but also through the enhanced partnership for the bus service improvement plan. And quite uniquely, actually, both bus operators have agreed that they're going to work together on driver recruitment. so they're not beggar thy neighbour from each other when they're doing recruitment. We're also going to be working with Solent Apprenticeship and Skills Hub to promote apprenticeships and recruitment for bus drivers, and also other skills, bearing in mind the news in the last 24 hours or so that the First Bus are buying the old Portsmouth news site, and also it's going to be an electric bus hub, which is going to be really exciting in terms of skills and technology.
And also First are planning, because they've closed Southampton, the services in Southampton, they're hoping to planning to bring a lot of their bus drivers over here, because quite a few of them were based in this area or very close to it. So hopefully that will improve. But yeah, thank you. Yes, I'm very pleased about this. And I'm ecstatic about the bus depot, because I'm sad. But I've been going on about a bus depot for Portsmouth for, I don't know, 3-4 years now. So hallelujah, it's happening. Good, thank you. Right, number 12, and that's Hayley, I think, public transport strategy.
Yes, thank you. So we're bringing forward this information-only report to provide an overview of the forthcoming Portsmouth public transport strategy, including its indicative timescales. The public transport strategy is integral to support the ambition and delivery of the adopted Portsmouth transport strategy, providing opportunity for alternative travel choice through transformative public transport, which will also support cleaner air. The strategy will support wider social benefits such as access to employment, education and training, reduce social isolation, and support health, well-being and quality of life. It is to be brought forward at this time when the Council has successfully secured government funding for public transport programmes, which need a clear policy framework to ensure their achievement towards the Portsmouth Transport Strategy ambition. The public transport strategy is an integral document of the Portsmouth Transport Strategy, but also supporting the Imagine Portsmouth City Vision and wider council work. The strategy will support the local plan through alternative travel modes, which in turn will support increased productivity and the city's economy. The public transport strategy is in its early stages of development and will be developed further through stakeholder engagement, including all member workshops. Integral to the engagement will be the enhanced partnership with the bus operators introduced through the Bus Service Improvement Plan. The strategy will also build on the Solent connectivity rail plans being led by Network Rail and future transport zone initiatives being led by Solent Transport. The public transport strategy will be developed closely with a cross-departmental working group. The indicative timeframes for developing it are regular meetings of an internal officer working group to be established in spring, quarterly updates to the LTP4 strategy board, the next meeting in June, all member workshops and external stakeholder workshops in autumn, permission to consult and public consultation in winter 23 with proposed adoption in spring 24. Thank you.
Thank you, Hayley. Councillor Heaney.
No questions, just happy to see this come forward.
Any
No,
points
happy
make?
to see this come forward. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bosher.
Perhaps I've got one very picky question, and it might be light-hearted, Hayley. Fabulous graph there, sorry, table there. Could you tell me what ultra-zero emission strategy is? Because it's either zero or it's not zero, unless we're talking absolute zero, maybe. But what's ultra-zero?
So this is basically going to be looking at electric vehicles and alternative fuels. And I think we're going to bring forward an electric vehicle strategy rather than terminology that's not understood. And
the only other comment again, and it's probably equally light-hearted, I think, in the circumstances, obviously with the South East Hampshire Rapid Transit Scheme, this will provide rapid bus routes across the city, making quicker and more reliable journey times. You could factor in that loop to QA now with the number 23 when you've done that.
Tell you one thing I didn't ask, Hayley, is how involved are we with Solent Transport from the MAS, the Mobility as a Service, and the development of the Breeze app, because that is one that's going to connect lots of different services, like the ferries and the trains and the buses, etc., so that it makes travel much easier for people.
Yeah, that's being led by Solent Transport and the Future Transport Zone team, but our officers are involved in that and are getting involved in the rollout of that.
So will that come into the strategy at some point? Because I know it's not ready at the moment.
Yeah, so there'll be elements around ticketing and all of those sorts of journey planning elements, and that will be part of that.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Yes, well, I'm very happy with this. It's all going forward, positive stuff, isn't it? And I think, Liam, you'll be pleased to know this is coming to the end, and it's item number 13, private hire vehicles in bus lanes trial, so review.
Thank you. This information-only report notes the current status of the private hires vehicles in bus lanes trial, the baseline data and trial data collected to date. Initial indications show that there have been no significant changes to PHV or bus journey times, general journey times, junction travel times or contraventions since the start of the trial on the 14th of November last year. It's not possible to draw any definitive conclusions on the data collected so far, as we have not yet collected a large enough sample of data with which to review the trial against. This is especially true for air quality data, which is affected to a greater degree by external factors such as seasonal change. It has been determined that collecting more data will help us to better understand the impact of the trial and enable us to propose recommendations on the next steps once at a later stage. The report also provides a detailed summary on stakeholder engagement throughout the trial, as well as trial safety. With regards to stakeholder engagement, there were a series of concerns raised about the commercial road bus lane being excluded from the trial. A summary of the reasoning for this has been provided within the report. Additionally, we have summarised the efforts made in monitoring any potential confusion through enforcement data available at this location. This enforcement data does not show any indication that additional vehicles are contravening and receiving penalties as a result of confusion. Since the start of the trial, there has been no serious injury collisions involving cyclists at any of the trial sites. A total of 3 near misses have been submitted since the start of the trial. However, through investigation, it was determined that 2 out of the 3 near misses were not near or related to any trial sites. Regardless of this, licensing were informed of all of the near misses and followed standard procedure to address any reported issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bosher.
I have no real questions. The only comment I would make that on the basis of the report, it seems to be working.
I was very pleasantly surprised, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way, but I honestly thought that there would be more sort of problems, but there haven't been, which is really good, really good. Councillor Heaney.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Stagg. No real questions. I mean, I think we just need to see the end of the trial and get the full results.
And can I say what a thorough trial it's been? Plenty of baseline evidence to start off with so that we knew what we were doing. And I know that the PHV drivers weren't happy just by having 5 bus lanes involved, but it's proved to be worthwhile because it's covered a whole range of different sort of circumstances in the bus lanes. And I think that the PHV drivers have listened and sort of behaved themselves. I mean, by that I mean, you know, they haven't committed any kind of traffic offences that have caused, or don't seem to have anyway, that caused any problems. And that was a main concern. I think the cyclists in particular were worried, weren't you, Ian, about, you know, the cyclists being impacted. And I just hope that this will carry on. But they know, I think they all know, that if it doesn't, if the driving behaviour declines, then the whole scheme can be stopped. So, but it's good. Thank you for all the work you put into it. And I know you've done a lot of work on this, Liam. Fantastic. So thank you very much indeed. And yes, and that's about it. I just want to say this is my last meeting. And I want to thank the officers. Because I should probably start crying now because the officers are an amazing bunch of people. They really are. They've worked their socks off throughout the year under really, really difficult circumstances on many occasions. And I just want to thank them all for all that work that they put in, well over and above what they need to do. And it's superb. And I also want to say thanks to Tristan, do wish him good luck, because he will be leaving us next month to pastures new. So I want to wish you good luck with that. And thank you for the backing and support that you've given the team. So thank you all ever so much. And enjoy. It's an earlier finish than I'd expected. So all enjoy yourselves. Thank you very much.